Good evening, everyone. Is my mic working here? Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the regular July 2024 meeting of the Royal Oak Planning Commission. I'll call the meeting to order, starting down on my far right. If the panel can introduce themselves for the record, please.
Joseph Murphy, Director of Planning.
Clyde Esbert.
Charlene Douglas, City Commissioner.
Tim Twink, Director of Community Development.
Josh Markham, City Attorney's Office.
Woody Gantina.
Jim Allison.
Mike Fournier, Mayor.
And I'm Gary Casada, I'm the chairperson. All right, the first order of business is approval of the meeting minutes from the last 2 months, because we skipped a month. So have the commissioners had a chance to look at, we're going to start with the April 9th meeting minutes. Are there any comments, corrections, or motion on the April 9th meeting minutes? I know it was a while ago.
I will make a motion to approve the minutes as presented for the April 9th meeting.
All right. Motion to approve April 9th by Mr. Esbry. Is there a second? Second by Mr. Gantina. Is there any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, we'll call for the voice vote. All those in favor of approving the minutes for April 9th say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. Next is the May 14th meeting minutes. And once again, did the commissioners have a chance to look these over? There are questions, comments, corrections, or a motion to approve the minutes?
Mr. Chairman, I move the May 14th minutes.
All right, Mr. Ellison moves to approve the May minutes. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Commissioner Douglas. Is there any discussion on the motion? All right, seeing no hands, I'm going to call again for the voice vote. All those in favor of approving the May 14th minutes say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. All right, so the minutes are approved. Before we move on to the public comment, I just forgot to ask, does anybody have anything to add to the agenda tonight? Staff or commissioners? Seeing none, okay. We'll proceed. All right, now it's time for public comment. If there are people in the public, and I see right away there is one, on a non-agenda item, please come to the podium, introduce yourself for the record, and you got 3 minutes. Please proceed.
Good evening. My name is Trish Oliver. I'm a Royal Oak resident. We are being excluded from providing meaningful input in the content of the new master plan. At this point in the process, you need to build in town hall meetings so that public input can be incorporated into the new draft. Last year's charrettes and town hall meetings solicited public input, but you didn't like that input because it didn't support your predetermined outcomes. Now you don't even want to consider additional neighborhood input, and you're just excluding us completely at this point, in that in the current stage 4, the mayor and commission will only allow the DPZ consultants from Oregon to consider the planning and city commissions and YIMBY's feedback while ignoring the majority of the public. The politicians have recruited the YIMBYs, also known as Yes in My Backyard, to get involved to support the new master plan. YIMBY is funded by a dark money nonprofit out of San Francisco. They were invited in and embraced by the Royal Oak politicians to undermine the needs and interests of the majority of residents and to justify their predetermined outcomes. When the current master plan was put together 20 years ago, about 50 meetings took place in which true public input was incorporated so that the existing master plan was actually crafted out of resident feedback. The most important meetings to solicit residents' input and changes took place at this point in the process after the master plan draft was presented, and that's what you're not doing this time. See pages 217 to 218 of the current master plan for a listing of those meetings. Further, the master plan draft is being hidden until tomorrow, July 10th, after tonight's meeting so that the public won't be able to comment. In addition, Mayor Fournier belittled the feedback from 300 neighbors of the 4704 Rochester Road project who signed a protest petition about the project going from 16 to 42 units. He instead listened to the YIMBYs and the developer after taking the development team's money. We could have had 16 affordable units instead of 3 at 4704 Rochester Road, except that the mayor wanted the money more than the affordable units. The mayor should stop taking the money, return all the money that he took, and listen to the residents. At this point, you need to rethink your schedule, and instead of all these private meetings with the consultant, you need to schedule more town hall meetings to solicit input from the public. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Is there anybody else from the public who would like to speak on a non-agenda item? Right here.
Good evening. My name is Thomas Horman. I live at 914 Genesee. I want to second the remarks that were just made. So public comment was solicited a number of times during the development of the draft master plan, and it's only fair that after we have a chance to see whether our concerns were addressed in the draft, that we also have opportunities to make further comment and hopefully have our concerns addressed before the plan is finalized. Royal Oak is faced with problems, as are just about every other community in the United States. Crumbling infrastructure, higher expenses, perhaps falling revenues. All of these are common. However, a common solution in terms of a cut and paste master plan is not going to work for Royal Oak. We are not San Francisco, we are not Portland, we are not Boston, we are not even Birmingham or Ann Arbor. We're Royal Oak, and our concerns are what needs to be addressed in the master plan to drive our city, our community, our neighborhoods into the future. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Anyone else? Right here.
It's very similar to what you hear, but not as good. I'm Phyllis Salter. Anyway, I want to know why you want to add at the cost of existing residents more housing. Who is telling you what to do? You've been building structures that keep the average guy out of the city, along with the green, which is very important. You will continue to build the high-end pod units whose cars will be filling up the neighborhoods. Again, I did this before, research indicates that we have a decreased population that has already reached its peak and is showing a trend of decline. So a while ago, we gathered at Churchill, some at other places, and we showed that we wanted to keep the neighborhoods like they were. You are ignoring that, apparently, because like we're nothing. We went to the Charettes during the working hours, where we had a very limited time for input. We did experience a live attempt at some violence, followed by videotape being taken down. I know what happened with that. I was told by the leader of DPZ and a representative of DPZ that there are no zoning changes. The leader's description is, the current use of a land would become a different use, which would require a zoning change. Got that? Now again, we're being ignored. We only live here, like closed meetings, worse. Our lives will depend on someone who doesn't live here, as I understand, whose job is to squeeze the cities, as is DPZ, and those who have other reasons. Where is the respect from the past? Or don't you want to say anything? Our times and our lives have been ignored by this and have their own agenda, and those who follow them, or maybe by some who will not be affected by this zoning. There is no rationale you can give. I'm sure your attorneys and contractors are chopping at the bit. So I don't know what kind of government this is. It's like pieces of several types, at least right now, because it's not democratic right now. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Is there anyone else in the audience who'd like to speak on a non-agenda item?
Nancy Poprovsky, concerned citizen. On April 9th and May 14th minutes, approximately 30 people combined who spoke for public comment or hearing were identified like this. After all interested members of the audience came forward. That's it. Meeting minutes should record the facts, who was present, who took part in the discussion, and what decisions were made. If the members of the Planning Commission who might be volunteering their time get mentioned for their part, isn't it respectful to at least mention that 30 people came and voiced their opinion on that topic? At least this should be on record for the public and historically. This ensures accountability and should be clear if the public comes to voice about a specific issue. Please be sure to include this. It helps with transparency. I'm also concerned why developers who run out of money can continue to not finish projects. I've been told there's a fine, but how does that help the neighborhood who has to look at it? Or maybe that developer should have not bitten off more than they can chew. The city needs to side with their neighbors more in general. Lastly, the master plan the last one, not the present one, included city staff that knocked on doors. I answered my door to them. They had town meetings. They followed up on the town meetings. And I felt like I was important. Before this master plan is approved, there must be a town meeting announced well in advance in an easily accessible place, no parking fees, maybe last 3 hours. We've had less than 15 meetings, and this includes surveys, which are not engaging between people. All meetings should be videotaped wherever they are for those people that cannot attend. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Is there anyone else in the audience who wants to speak on a non-agenda item? All right, seeing none, I'm going to close the public comment and we'll move to the agenda here. First thing on our agenda is unfinished business. It's SB 240405. That's the site plan at 3828 West 13 Mile. Mr. Twing.
As you can see, the petitioner Corwell Health has again asked the Planning Commission to consider postponing their site plan review and approval application until your next meeting, which would be August 13th, 2024. Given that this is probably the third meeting, or at least the second they've asked for postponement, I would suggest you simply table it or make a motion to table it, and then we'll put it back on an agenda when they're actually ready, and we can stop seeing requests for postponements. That'd be the only distinction I would make. There is no public hearing, so there's no notice, there's no requirement. It can just show up when it's ready.
You have a question here?
No, I was just going to say I'm prepared to make a motion as recommended by Mr. Twing.
All right, are you completed with your comments?
Yes.
Okay. You're making a motion
I just made
to
it.
table SP 240405. That's the motion?
That is the motion, sir.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Mr. Gantina. Is there discussion of this?
The question is it an open-ended table or is it a closed-ended table? Can we table it until they come forth with something?
That's correct.
Well, procedurally tabling it would mean we address it later in the same meeting. It would be a postponement
What's
of
that?
some sort, either indefinite or for a set time.
Oh, okay, so just to be clear, does the...
It's a motion to postpone,
Not table.
not table.
I'm not sure I follow. Explain the difference between postponing and tabling.
Sure, if we table it, it's meant to be addressed later in the meeting. We're just
Yeah.
putting it off for now. A postponement is to address it at a later meeting. That's either indefinite, which they can ask us to put it back on, or for a set time, which you would set right now for the next meeting or the meeting after that.
So what we had is a motion to table, which means we would have to address it later in the meeting. What I think was intended, and Mr. Esby can correct me, is that we're going to put it in limbo until they're ready. So it would be sort of suspended. That's what I think we're trying to get at.
The nomenclature would be postponement.
Postpone without a future date then.
Correct.
Because what you've been doing is postponing it to the next meeting. So if the proper term is postponement, then put it on the table until they're ready.
What impact does that have on them as far as all the processes, procedures, and fees that they've paid already to this point? Do we keep carrying that forward? Or does there come a point in time that we just say, we're not gonna go any farther, if you wanna do this, you've gotta reapply?
Well, they wouldn't pay any additional fees. There's no additional staff review occurring until they actually resubmit. So until when they do submit what they want you to consider, we'd simply make note of any changes that have occurred since their last submission and request for approval. So I wouldn't anticipate any additional fees that they would have to pay. The longest postponement since I've been here was a 14-year postponement.
Okay, so,
So it could sit there for quite some time.
okay, so I guess my question then is, there's a motion to table, which means we have to
Well,
address it later.
let me withdraw that motion,
Okay,
and whoever wants to, I didn't see who supported, if you want to withdraw your support.
I'll withdraw the support for that
Okay.
motion, yeah.
And let me reintroduce it as a motion to postpone indefinitely.
thank you. The motion is to postpone indefinitely, second by Mr. Gantina.
Second
Is there further discussion of this motion? Okay, seeing none, I'm going to call for the voice vote. All those in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion passes, so SB 240405 is postponed indefinitely. All right, now, new business is a public hearing, a special land use and site plan. This is SB 240706 at 1023 South Main Street. Mr. Twing, let's have you walk us through.
Certainly, this site is zoned mixed use 2. In that district, outdoor cafes and establishments that have a liquor license or the ability to sell alcoholic beverages are both considered special land uses. In this particular case, the site already has an established liquor license, so primarily the special land use relates to the outdoor service cafe because there isn't currently one, and the potential expansion of the liquor license building proper. As you see in the packet that you've received, the petitioner is proposing, in addition to the northeast corner of the building, approximately 452 square feet. They are also proposing a patio on the north side of the building where the parking lot currently sits. It would extend out into the parking lot, but they do have sufficient room to adjust the parking aisles, drive lanes, and still comply with dimensional standards. So they are not losing any parking spots with that additional area for the outdoor patio. That patio is proposed to have a retractable roof along with a window system and new 40-inch masonry wall around the base of the area. They also are proposing interior renovations to the existing space that include kitchen additions as well as some improvements to the bathroom facilities. As I said, the parking area numbers and existing are not being reduced. However, with the additional square footage you'll see on part of the staff write-up, in counting prior variances, there have been a total of 3 prior variances on the entire site, which not only includes the restaurant bar, but also the pharmacy building to the south. So it's considered all one parcel. So with all of that in consideration, the site would be required to have 142 parking spots. They are providing, as I said, on-site spaces, and they've been granted variances over the years for 52. With all of that in the chart that's included in your packet, they are going to be deficient an additional 12 spaces. So as part of your special land use consideration, you would have to grant them permission to seek that variance from the Zoning Board of Appeals. So that would be one part of your action on the special land use if you wanted to bless it and move it forward. Other items that are at the Planning Commission discretion, you'll see in the report, are related to the maximum height building width ratio in terms of they are exceeding the 1.3 that's permitted on both the north and south elevation parts of the building. Again, that's to your discretion as part of the site plan review as to whether that is sufficient. In addition, you've got some discretion in terms of the landscaping and screening that's proposed. You do have a landscape plan in your packet. If you're happy with that landscape plan, you can approve it as submitted. If there are revisions or corrections that you would request, you should make that as part of your site plan review and approval. Currently, there are 30-inch masonry walls along the parking lot along Main Street. Those are not being replaced. They are simply putting in landscape material along that area, as you'll see in the packet. That's kind of my overview of the special land use report. I'll take care of the site plan items based on Planning Commission's discussion and moving forward with the special land use.
All right, so we have two things that we would have to, this is going to go forward. We have to have two things we have to prove. We have to prove the special land use and grant them permission to go to the zoning board. That's what I understand.
Yes.
Okay. Are there any questions for Mr. Twing before we call the petitioners forward?
So this is not final site plan approval tonight, this is simply special use?
No, it'll be a final, but that'll be the second action after.
Second part of this,
yes.
because, okay, so we have to do that tonight yet, too, then? Okay.
There's two items related that you're
To
dealing
this.
with on the special land use, and then you'll take care of the
Okay.
site plan afterwards.
All right, any other questions? All right, is the petitioner here? Please come on up. Introduce yourself, tell us why you're entitled to the relief you seek.
Good evening, Brian Howard with HF Architecture, and Santa Zawida is here as the owner of the Yield Saloon.
Good evening.
And so when Santa came to me and said, I want to do an outdoor patio area, and this has been 2 years in the making. And we originally were just going to build a patio and leave it up to weather and how often it was going to be available. And then about a year ago, 6 months ago, there was a decision that was, boy, I'm really liking the idea of maybe making this a little bit more usable instead of just from, say, May to October. I'd really like to expand it. And that's where the idea of this retractable roof came up. Joseph, do you have those renderings on there? So we had renderings done of this retractable roof. And as Tim mentioned, it's on the north side. It's taking up parking that's currently there. And so where this all started to evolve from was the ability to create something very unique. And this will be the second one in the state of Michigan. And it's a company out of Connecticut that actually we've talked to. They've been at the site. And we thought it was kind of an interesting, very innovative way to create an outdoor area that allows us to keep it open. And I'm not saying year round because it's still going to be, you know, we still have to deal with February and January and all that. So, but the idea is that it gives Yield Saloon the opportunity to really create this unique situation. So what that evolved into was, okay, well now we got to change the parking lot. And the parking lot became If you've been there, their north side parking lot is ridiculously wide currently. And the drive aisle is twice as wide as it needs to be. Parking spots come right up to the building, both against the 1 Hour Martinizing building as well as against the Yield Saloon. So we're able to steal some of that square footage, as Tim mentioned, keep our drive aisles exactly what Royal says we need to do, keep our parking spaces the width and depth they need to be, but picked up 12 feet of area to create this almost 600 square foot outdoor patio area. On top of that, there was a need for the Yield Saloon to create more storage. They currently don't have any areas to put bottle returns, can returns, and they're stacked, you know, in the areas probably they shouldn't be. So what the storage addition provides them is the opportunity to put, that's the rendering if you go back one, that shows the retractable area. Anyway, the storage addition is allowing them to create the storage that they desperately need. There's also another part of this project, which is to redo the restrooms there, which are in desperate need of being redone. So we were able to take, again, some square footage out of the bar area to then give us the ability to put barrier-free bathrooms in, which they currently are not, and just upgrade this up to what Santa and everybody would love this place to be. So that's kind of where this project has kind of moved to where we are today. The other thing that I'll mention is the amount of landscaping that we're putting in. And Tim had mentioned the fact that we're going to eliminate the 30-inch masonry walls. It becomes this, in my opinion, as the architect, it becomes this visual barrier. It's not like I'm trying to screen headlights because the cars are parallel to those walls. So I'm like, why are we having these walls that literally feel like, you know, I'm driving through a gated community to get to this parking lot? So that's why we kind of chose to remove the walls. We're also attempting, and I'm not 100% sure we're going to be able to pull this off yet, but those landscape areas that you see between the drive aisle are also going to kind of act as a bioswale for us. When we ultimately do our stormwater detention, we're using some of that landscaped area to hold some of this water that we're not going to have to pump into the system. It's not going to allow us to, those areas aren't big enough for us to not do stormwater detention, but they are intended to help us to get to the point where we don't have to throw this water into the infrastructure. So I'll let, if I missed anything?
No, I think, thank you for your consideration, but as you know, when I did the building next door, aesthetics is very important to me, and that's the way we would, you know, accomplish this project as well. Actually, Brian did mention that there's 2 in the state of Michigan, but we would be the first bar restaurant in the state. This is something that is used a lot on the East Coast, New York, Chicago, and I think it would be something attractive for the city as well.
And if I can make one last point to this, and Santa has made this commitment to this project and has owned the Yield for quite a while and is making this substantial financial commitment to this. The retractable roof alone is $250,000. So she's making a substantial commitment to this project, and it's going to be a brand new parking lot when it's all said and done. You're not going to have the bumps and the issues that are currently there. So I just want everybody aware that it's not a small endeavor.
All right. Stay put. Are there questions for the petitioners? Go ahead.
I have one, but it's more related to the site plan approval. I can just ask it now. It's an issue in the building.
You have the floor.
Okay. The door on the southeast corner that you're removing, is that door in operation now as an emergency exit or anything?
It is not.
Okay, my concern is lying in the fact, have you done all the calculations? Because you're leaving kind of a dead space against that south wall. I want to make sure everybody's got enough, was it 75-foot state?
It is. It is 75 feet.
So you've calculated all that, and we don't, because I see where it could get kind of tricky for someone if they're back near the bathroom area or something like that, trying to get out in a building that may be smoke covered, that they have a direct exit. That's my only concern. If you've studied all that and you're confident you have that safety egress, then I'm fine.
Yeah, I have done the calculation on that. And when I take the midpoint, say where the center of the shuffleboard is, and I calculate as I wrap around that bar, that gets me out to those two exits, which are at would be the northeast and the northwest.
Yeah, 'cause there really is no egress on the south side of the building.
There is none.
So that was my biggest concern. If they meet state standard of 75 foot or whatever it is, then that's all we can ask.
And we'll have all those calculations when we submit for.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Espy.
Yes, I do have a question for the petitioner. Now, obviously, as part of the special land use process, we have to grant you permission to go in front of the ZBA. This proposed plan is going to create an additional 12-spot deficiency on the site based on the additional seating and so forth. But looking at the other uses, and even if you have to sort of answer this anecdotally, I'm seeing a medical office, I'm seeing a pharmacy, the uses seem to be opposite of the peak times of this type of operation. Have you done any sort of shared parking analysis or anything like that? Can you speak to that at all?
We did a shared parking analysis back in 06, 07 when we did and we got the 52 space variance. We did that. And we got granted for that based on the fact that it was a shared parking concept, and felt that, at least the zoning board at that particular time, felt that because they were off hours or not peak hours, when the bar's busy, there's nobody in the pharmacy building, for instance. And so that's kind of where we haven't done one currently, no, we did not. But in our opinion, we also felt that this patio area is seasonal. So it's not necessarily year-round. And so we figure people are going to walk there. They're going to bike there. We're planning on having bike racks. We're planning on people using something other than a car to get there. And that's why we feel like it's really, yes, it's 12 spaces, but is there really the need for 12 more spaces? That's our opinion.
Thank you.
All right, I got a couple questions.
Okay.
Or one question anyways. Your operation is one of the things we're considering here. This is going to be a retractable roof, and I see the windows open as well. You guys are an iconic establishment. One of the reasons is because you're a late night establishment. So if I understand correctly, you open till 2 in the morning. So in the summertime, this patio will be open to the air, yes?
Yes, correct.
Okay, so I guess my question is, so up to this point, you haven't had people sitting outside talking and having a good time at 1:30 in the morning, but is that something that could happen here, yes?
Correct.
And so I just want to ask you, do you have any intention of how you're going to make sure that things don't get too loud for people there are people in the neighborhood to the east?
Well, I mean, if it's a nice evening out and it's not raining or it's not storming, right, where it'll be closed, then obviously those sounds won't be coming out, right? They'll be contained. In the case where the structure's open, there's the intent that I mean, maybe it's not open until 2 o'clock. Maybe it's closed earlier. I think that the fact that it's on the north side of the building and the fact that you have the two ends which are closed, the sound is going to reverberate and kind of go more directionally towards the 1 hour Martinizing. Sure, is it going to bleed, you know, to the homes on the east? Yes, probably. But I don't think that particular instance, I mean, there's not live music out there. The intent is to have a couple speakers out there. Same music that's inside would be outside. Certainly we would never go above what the ordinance says for the noise requirement.
All right.
The decibel level.
Sort of what I'm looking for there, that you're going to respect the noise ordinance.
Yeah, we've always been cooperative with everyone who lives around there, and we've never had any issue. I mean, many of our patrons do live there, and as Brian mentioned, they walk over, bike over. So, and obviously, if there was ever a situation, we would address it.
All right, thank you. I got one more question because Mr. Ellison's question raised the question. Is that door on the southwest corner of the building, is that currently used as an exit door? No. I mean, as an emergency exit door?
There's a dartboard or a pinball machine in front of it.
Okay, it's blocked.
So
it's not in use.
Correct.
Okay. All right, I don't have any more questions. Anybody else have questions for the petitioner? Okay, well, this is special land use, so now we're going to have public comment, so you can have a seat, and we'll call the public to the podium. All right, is there anybody in the audience who'd like to speak on this special land use for Ye Olde Saloon? All right, seeing none, I'm going to close the public comment and bring it back to the side of the table for a discussion. If there's any other questions for Mr. Twing, council, the petitioners, each other, or a motion. All right, well, I asked, oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I'll move approval of the special land use with the provision authorizing the applicant to seek the parking variance as described in the documents.
Is there a second by Mr. Ellison? So, the motion by Commissioner Douglas is to approve the special land use and grant permission to seek the zoning variance as described in the documents. That's the motion, yes? Okay. Further discussion on the motion. Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, I'd just like to thank the petitioner. I think it's always great to see a long-standing iconic business take the opportunity to reinvest in itself and in the community. I think that Royal Oak, especially in and around our downtown area, is the right place for any outdoor venue that we can get for dining and for socializing. And I think this is in an appropriate spot to do this. I'm not worried about the parking. I think the landlord pretty much has the control of the area and would only be impairing their business or tenants, and I think they understand the shared parking concept and what works for them. And the noise, I feel satisfied that this is a commercial area and will project to the north, and feel overall it's appropriate that we would grant the request so they can continue to find ways to be successful given all the turmoil since COVID.
Mr. Ellison.
I'm going to echo what the mayor is saying. As a resident in the Soul Road District, as we call it, South Royal Oak, it is really truly exciting to see a building that has been invested in the city of Royal Oak for so many. I mean, I go back, I remember when Bob Battinelli's owned that building. It goes a long ways back. But to see reinvestment in a building, an established business in light of the times right now that we're hearing some bad news about some other restaurants in town, and I'm glad to see that you guys are pushing forward. And don't change the recipe of your hamburgers either, please.
Mr. Cantina.
So not to beat the dead horse, but I do want to, I guess, thank the petitioner for making the investment in the business. It is nice to see that you're going to be improving your property, not only for the type of business that you're going to be able to provide for your patrons, but it's also beautifying the property. I think what you're doing with the landscape plan and adding more plantings and greenery to the traffic islands there versus not having to do anything there speaks to the level at which you would like to run your business. And so I appreciate the fact that you're reinvesting in your business here in Royal Oak, and I'm happy to see it, and I'll be supporting the project.
All right, anybody else? Mr. Esper?
Mr. Quesada, so am I the only one that's got a little devil on my shoulder saying, "How dare you touch my favorite dive bar?" That's all.
All right, anyone else? Okay, I'll just say for the record, I think that after hearing the petitioner, and I think that the project meets the standards, the basis determinations 1 through 7. I don't see any problem with any of them, and I am ready to call for the vote if there's no other comments here. All right, I'm going to call for a voice vote. All those in favor of the motion, which is to approve the site plan and grant permission for the petitioner to seek the variance. What's that?
Special land use.
Special land use, I'm sorry, and grant permission to go to the zoning board for the variance as described therein, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, motion passes. Congratulations on the site plan. You're not done yet. We still got, or the special land use, we got the site plan. Okay, Mr. Twing.
Well, very briefly, you'll see the contingencies listed on the site plan memo. The first one is obviously that the Zoning Board of Appeals grant all the necessary variances regarding off-street parking. The second one relates to the City Commission also approving an amended plan of operation under the liquor ordinance to allow outdoor service of alcoholic beverages. I would also point out that that plan of operation also generally addresses discussion of noise and outside music for those facilities that are outdoors. In addition to that, item 3, the zoning ordinance has some provisions about what can occur in regards to outside service cafes. So it's kind of covered by both ordinances in terms of noise on any outside establishment. If you're happy with the height to building height ratio, item 4 would simply approve it as submitted, and that's true as item 5 in terms of their landscape plan that has been submitted. The rest of the items are standard contingencies regarding lighting, signage. The only thing I would point out under signage is that the current signs are all non-conforming signs, meaning that if there's modifications to them, they would have to come back and seek variances for those signs. So if there's upgrades or refacing or anything that occurs with those, it appears the one painted on sign on the north side will be removed based on the drawing or the plans, but I just point that out for the record. The other ones are performance bonds by the building official and then compliance with any storm detention and engineering requirements.
All right, other questions for Mr. Twing? Mr. Ellison.
I'm ready to move the site plan. I move the approval of the site plan with all 10 contingencies as listed and as submitted on the drawings.
All right, there's a motion to approve the site plan with the 10 contingencies. Is there a second? Second by Mr. Gantina. Is there discussion? All right, I just have a quick question for Mr. Twing. You mentioned about a plan of operation there. Did they submit a plan of operation, or is that something that they owe us?
I believe, based on my conversations with the police department, they have submitted one, and it is going to the City Commission in the near future.
All right, is that the same plan of operation that goes with the site plan, or is it a different plan?
Well, it should include the same site plan, but it gets into more detail in regards to how they deal with staff training, TIPS program. It gets into operational issues about how they function internally.
All right. I have other questions about later, just in general about those plans of operation, but okay, I'm satisfied. Any further discussion about the site plan? There's a motion by Mr. Ellison, I believe it was seconded by Mr. Gantina, to approve the site plan with the 10 contingencies. I'm going to call for the vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, the site plan is approved. Congratulations. Go have fun. All right. Next order of business is SP 240707. This is a site plan at the northeast corner of Crooks Road and Windermere Avenue. Mr. Twing, there's a story behind this one, I bet.
Well, there's a history behind this one. I don't know if it constitutes a story or not. There was a prior, this particular site is vacant. To the north is city-owned property. There's an existing license agreement that was approved by the City Commission back in 2009 that went with the prior approval for a professional office building of very similar size, a little bit different design configuration in terms of roof lines and things, but very similar size in terms of about 4,300 square feet. The parking layout is also very consistent with the prior approval that was given to that project several years ago. I would say in 2018, staff took a request to the City Commission to terminate said license agreement, and the City Commission chose not to terminate it. So the license agreement to use the city property for a parking lot has stayed and remains in place, and the petitioner is looking to develop that parking lot under those terms and conditions. So you will see in our approval or on the site plan that what they are now proposing is a one-story dentist's office with about 4,300 gross square feet, about 3,500 usable. As I said, that's very consistent with the prior approval. It would require 18 parking spots. The site plan includes 44, 2 of which are handicap spots. The site is zoned office service, the privately owned property. In terms of design, as I said, it's very similar. The setbacks are somewhat adjusted in terms of the building was moved. This proposed building was moved slightly south, reducing the setback along Windermere in order to address building code requirements in terms of openings in proximity to a property line. So from the prior approval back in 2009, it's moved a little bit south, where the setback from Windermere would have been 25 feet. In 2009, it's now varies between 16 and 17 feet, 8 inches roughly, based on the facade of the building. So number 2 is in regards to approval with the building setbacks, which you do have discretion over in terms of what those setbacks are under the ordinance. If you're happy with what's proposed, you can approve it as submitted. Screening, you also have significant review, as you did in the last one, under the proposed landscape plan. They are removing several trees. There is a difference in the diameter of the breast to height requirement of some 29 inches. So you can either require that they approve the plan as submitted with the configuration as submitted, and or you can require the payment of the $5,800 based on the fee requirement under the ordinance in terms of replacement of trees. Or you can require that they put in an additional number of trees to meet the 29 inches in terms of breast to height, the diameter of a tree. Fifth, the some of the parking spaces that you see along the Crooks Road right-of-way, the west side of the city property, are technically out in the, what would be the required front setback. You do have the discretion to determine that is sufficient and acceptable and approve it as submitted. As I said, it's very similar to the previously approved plan. The rest of the requirements are all standard contingencies regarding compliance with signage, performance bonds being posted, compliance with city codes, including storm detention, which they are proposing. This is a straight site plan, so you simply have the site plan action.
All right. Any questions for Mr. Twing or?
Mr. Twing, has the Recreation Department weighed in on this, given that this parking lot is used heavily on Saturdays when this business would also be open for operation?
Well, the parking lot they're proposing does not exist. This is being built south of the existing parking lot.
Okay, I wasn't sure about that.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So in fact, well, and we can ask the petitioner this, if they're willing to let that lot be used on, when they're not there.
The license agreement may address some of the operational hours too.
I believe
Okay.
it does.
I'd have to read it again, but I think it does.
Okay, all right, thank you.
I don't know if council wants to comment on that. I don't know if you had a chance to read that license agreement.
You
I
went very
did.
fast, mate. Seeing as I was around when we had this discussion the first time, Recreation Department was very much involved in this process. It appeared finally, after all the discussions and all the concerns, it came out to be a win-win for all of us because they're going to put in the parking lot. It's going to be available for us almost all the time. But based on usage, they're going to be using it during the day, during the week, and the city will be using it for recreation programs at night and on the weekends. And it worked out very well. Gave a lot more parking to Warden Park, which is something that's, if you go by there lately, you see cars parked everywhere. So it'll help out. So there's much discussion when we did this back in '09.
All right.
Well, no, if you want to, you can look in the license agreement on page 3 under item paragraph 2. It talks about how the parking lot would be used and what hours would be used and when it would be available for public and when it would be available for them.
All right. And just for my clarification, how much of the new parking lot is on city property and how much is on the private property?
The building sets back, let me see if I can get to the site plan real quick. On this plan, you'll see that the property line is this dark line, so the entire parking lot is on city property.
Okay.
The building sets back, I believe, 6 feet from, 10 feet from that property line.
Okay, so just to be clear for the record, the entire new parking lot is subject to the license agreement where they can use it during their business hours, but the city and the patrons of the park are going to be able to use it
Right.
the rest of the time. Okay. All right. Any other questions on this side before we ask the petitioner to come forward? All right, is the petitioner here? Come on up, introduce yourself, tell us why you're entitled to the relief you seek, and we'll ask you a couple questions.
Yeah, good evening. I'm Mike Gordon from Moise Gordon Associates Architects. With me tonight is the Dr. Kamal Abraham. He's right here, and so is the owner of the property and the builder that we're working with. The property is the perfect location for this new dental office. His current office is just about a mile or so down the road, and he wanted to stay in the community. The size of the building, we've designed a great number of dental offices over the years and are very familiar with the licensing and with the operations. As a matter of fact, there's like 6 other dental offices in Royal Oak alone that we've done. The building will be totally barrier-free and accessible And it is, as discussed, basically a refinement of what was already approved. We just had to tweak it to fit the very particular needs of a dental office. And as stated, the hours are 8 to 5, Monday through Friday, and 8 to 1 on Saturdays. They asked us to design a building to provide a current look and a unique identity that represents his dental practice. The height of the building was minimized to blend in with the scale of the existing and adjoining residential neighborhoods in the commercial zone. The height must be a logical structural dimension to allow for the running of all the mechanicals. You know, there are certain requirements. And one of the requirements was to put a generator on the roof so that his building would operate if there is a power failure. It's a very large generator, very heavy generator, so we had to beef up the structure for that. The materials are brick and siding, which will provide a visual connection to the surrounding area. There will be an abundance of windows. And one of the issues that came up early on in the site plan was the interpretation is because that is a parking lot and is owned by the city, it falls under the onus that under the code, there's only a certain percentage of windows. The closer you get to that line, you have to have a minimal number of windows. So we chose to set the building 10 feet back so we can maximize a greater number of windows on the north side for transparency to the parking lot and just for the enjoyment of the customer. If you're familiar with a lot of dental offices, a lot of them have lots of windows now because sometimes you're laying there for a while and you get to enjoy nature. The new parking lot will have 44 spaces. By code, we're required to have 18, so it's a generous amount. So much to Charlene's question, even when he's in business, he's not going to be using the total parking spaces ever, unless he, really makes a success of it based on the number of operatories, based on the number of patients and staff. We will never get close to that. He's looking forward to expanding and upgrading his services for the current and future residents of the city of Royal Oak. He views this as a wonderful community to do business in, and we're hoping you look favorably upon this request. And if you have any questions, we're happy to help. And if you want to add.
Hello, I'm Camille Abraham. Been in the community now for a little bit over 3 years practicing. I acquired Dr. Larry Duffield's office. Honored to be in Royal Oak. I love the community. I love my patients, and I just want to be able to offer everyone in the community great dental services, state-of-the-art technology, and a larger space compared to what we have right now. Is we have patients who are unfortunately being scheduled out 6 months and longer because we're pretty confined to our current space. So we'd love the opportunity to establish this new facility and continue to serve Royal Oak and the surrounding areas. Thank you.
All right. Are there questions for the petitioner? He ran away, but are there questions for him? Commissioner Douglas.
Mr. Gordon, I see on your landscaping plan that it includes one or more silver maples. Given the track record of silver maples as we've seen throughout Royal Oak, might you reconsider planting something a little more
Sure.
long-lived than silver maples?
Sure, and this is subject to the approved list from the city, so maybe we overlooked that, or I don't know if it is still on the list, but.
Those are on the list? Oh, we'll have to do something about
Yeah.
that.
But we happy to substitute.
I mean, given that,
Right.
I mean, yes, it's the tree on your
Yeah.
property, but it contributes to the city as a whole, and we'd hate
Sure.
to see 30 years from now it having to come down.
Well, even we've seen the issues with oaks of late, tragically. Yeah, there's an oak blight. In Memorial Park, several oaks have been lost to it.
Oh, didn't
Yeah.
know that, but,
So it varies from year to year, so, and then the ecology changes, so.
anyway, that was all.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Okay, don't go away.
Nope.
Mr. Cantina.
So my question is, 2 years ago, the city adopted a Sustainability and Climate Action Plan. Part of that is to encourage more sustainable building and development practices. I have two questions, actually, and you can take them in whatever order you want. With the parking lot, you're creating a lot more impervious surface than what currently exists. I see that you've got a stormwater detention system in there. Was there any consideration given to including any green stormwater infrastructure strategies to help reduce the amount of stormwater infrastructure, engineered stormwater infrastructure they're going to have to put in there? And then my second question is with respect to the comment you made about a generator. Was there any consideration given to, instead of going with the generator, which I'm assuming is a natural gas power generator, going with renewables and battery storage, which could potentially save in terms of the structure not having to be as beefed up for that generator on the roof? I know that you're not required to do these things, but my question is if these were considered as part of your design process.
Well, I think the technology for the battery storage, the draw that this would have, I think they would add a tremendous amount of storage space and capacity to the building. And I don't think the technology is there yet. We've discussed this. We are constantly talking about green infrastructure. We've done a hotel that had a green roof that became an entertainment space. So yeah, we're always looking for that. And then, you know, the underground detention, unfortunately, the site is fairly full of building, and there's not a lot of green space. There is enough to satisfy the codes, but we'd be happy to work with the engineering department to see if there was anything that could be accomplished. I know everyone, you know, we talked about bioswales in the previous presentation, but we can work with our landscape people. Be happy to consider that.
All right, I want to follow up on that because I want to sort of talk about the trees. You are shy 29 inches, yet you're also overparked. I'm just curious, it seems to me you're perfectly capable of having the trees and meeting the tree ordinance. Tell me about that. You'd rather not, or what?
Well, in a number of projects, including ones in Royal Oak, we've contributed to the tree fund just as the request is here, and trees are planted elsewhere on the property. Another thing too is we don't want to bury the building in trees because there is a certain aspect of a commercial project that wants to have exposure and a visual connection to the street. The overparking was part of the negotiation of working with the city and creating a parking lot that had a benefit for the city and for this particular building. So that was all part of the
Okay,
agreement.
is there a minimum number of lots that you agreed to? I saw the number 30 in there, but that's probably not it.
I would have to go back and look. I'm sorry, I don't have that number.
Okay, but you're fine with the situation right now. The trees you have, they're the trees you have.
Yeah.
Yeah, again, so Iden Calvat of Calvat Engineering, to the civil engineer on the project. We were trying to keep the site plan in keeping with the previously approved one in the license agreement. So that is where a lot of the parking counts come from, the configuration of the parking, and as you noted, the reduction, the increased impervious area and reduction of tree space is in consistency with the previously approved license agreement and site plan. And I think the intent of that was to provide that additional parking for the enjoyment of the city and the park. So it was a trade-off that was kind of discussed prior to our involvement, and we kind of tried to stay true to that agreement and true to that plan in our current proposal.
Okay, very good. I got one more question. I think it's for Mr. Gordon. One of the things on the site plan checklist is a signage plan. I don't know if this is included here, that you're rendering. By the way, the building looks like it's going to be a great looking building.
Thank you.
And you do have a sign, a single sign on the rendering. Is that the only signage that you're considering?
We had a ground sign, I believe it's in there, Tim, which is, I think needs
Yeah, there's a monument sign.
Okay, so there's a
monument sign. That's what I was looking for, that word.
Okay.
There is a monument sign.
There's a monument sign in the southwest corner.
Okay, and that's compliant?
Well, it hasn't been reviewed in terms of compliance with the sign ordinance. It's really placement so that it doesn't impact the site clearance triangle. So they're depicting it as a compliant sign in that corner, but it doesn't show any details.
Okay, so my only last question is, so when there is signs that get presented, you're going to design it?
Right. And
Okay.
we're going to work with the city
That's
to
what I
make
wanna
sure
know.
well, yeah, because there's a certain percentage of facade that can be signed.
Yeah, you know what happens, sometimes the architect doesn't design it and the sign guy comes in here. We're hoping to see you back here when we have a sign.
Okay.
All right, very good. Any other comments, questions for the petitioner? All right, seeing none, I guess that you can stand there for a moment in case there's a question. Does anybody have, has there been a motion? Nobody made a motion. If we don't have anything else to discuss here, that would be the time. No, no, it's a site plan. But you know what? That's a great question. I don't have a problem. If somebody wants to talk on it.
Well, I have a question for the petitioners. How many cars do you see in terms of traffic per day during business hours do you see coming in and out of the?
So currently we have 5 operatories. Typically we have 5 patients in a room, and it could be anywhere from 3 to 5 patients waiting as we clean the rooms, sterilize the rooms, and then they walk out. So it could be maybe 10 cars at any given time. Then our staff members, which range from anywhere from 6 to 9, working at any given time.
So 10 if you have an average appointment. So 80 cars a day, 100 cars a day, roughly going in and out of the facility.
On average, I would say.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, so it is a site plan, there's no public comment, however, I see some other people came in. If it's the pleasure of the panel, I would just ask if anybody wants to speak. If there's anybody in the audience who would like to address the commission on this site plan, feel free to raise your hand and I'll call you up here.
I didn't know that my dentist was going to be here tonight. So I got to say something. I don't know much about the plan. You know how I am about trees. He doesn't know this about me. But he's the best dentist ever. So I'm prejudiced. So I hope it works for him. I hope you can work with him. But he's caring, and he's a great guy.
All right, thank you very much. All right, anybody else want to follow that up? Okay, I don't see any more hands, so we are going to close the public comment there, and we'll bring it back to this side of the table. Any further discussion or motion? Mr. Cantina.
Well, I guess I just want to make some additional comments. I generally think the building's a nice looking building, it's well designed. I think the site plan is fine, I don't really have any issues with it. But I do see this project as a great example of where we could be including more sustainability features. I mentioned that sustainability plan for a reason, because I'm hoping future projects that come forward do actually reference that plan to understand what we are actually looking for and the goals that we're trying to meet. It's very easy to find reasons why we can't do things. It's much harder to figure out how we can do things. I think there's ways that we can include more features from a sustainability perspective than are included in this project. But I am going to be supportive of it because I do think it is a good project.
All right, other comments, questions, motion? Mr. Esby.
I'll make a motion to approve site plan 240707 with the 10 contingencies as recommended by staff.
All right, is there a second? Oh, second by Mr. Ellison. All right, so there is a motion by Mr. Esby to approve the site plan with the 10 contingencies, seconded by Mr. Ellison. Is there?
There is follow-up, and I actually do have a quick question for Mr. Twing regarding contingency number 4. Does this body have the ability to compel them to say, we don't want your $5,800, you have to put 29 inches worth of trees in? Or is
Yes.
it, and I'm just curious procedurally, or is it completely their discretion?
No, it's your decision to make, and if you read that contingency, it's to either include payment of the tree replacement fee at $5,800 or plant more trees to a diameter of 28 inches. So you've got to make a decision on which
All
one.
right, so then let me amend my motion, because I think I heard the petitioner say you're going to be putting money in toward the tree fund to give them the marching orders of paying $5,800 toward the Royal Oak City Tree Fund.
All right, so you're amending your motion to withdraw the option, and you want it to just be pay the 58. All right.
Correct, sir.
The petitioner stood up and come over here, and so I'm going to suspect he wants to say something.
Well, it hasn't been seconded yet, so it could well die. He may not have to say anything.
Well, but he's standing there, so I'm going to let him speak. Go ahead.
I'll go along with the change since I seconded it.
All right.
The last time this came up, we had a site plan on 11 Mile, the same exact issue. and we left it as to the discretion. We've already discussed changing out the silver maples. We would revisit it, but I think giving us the option of, in lieu of getting the trees on the properties, to pay whatever the differential is. So if we got 14 inches off that, then we would pay half the amount of money. So I'm just saying, we'd prefer that you leave the option on the table that, you know, we will work with staff and say, okay, we've added replaced the 3 silver maples, and we've added 3 more trees with a caliber of 9 inches. So can we pay whatever the balance is?
All right. Mr. Gandino.
So my question is actually for Mr. Raspberry, because I sort of agree with the petitioner in the sense that I think keeping the option open would be a better way to go from the standpoint of, if they come into compliance with the tree ordinance in terms of planting more trees, that's, to me, a more preferable option than paying money into the tree fund. By stating the motion the way that you did, we're sort of limiting that option, really preventing them from going the route of planting larger diameter trees or more trees to come into compliance. So my question is really for you in terms of the rationale behind the amended motion and restricting their options, just for my own
No,
edification.
so actually, my rationale, quite frankly, is in reading this, I was kind of hoping that contingency number 4 would have been vetted before we even see it, so we already knew how they were going to meet the tree requirement. And now it sort of left us in a bit of a position where we have to guess, and now we may be getting a hybrid. Now they're going to have to work with staff. So clarification in advance, quite frankly, would have eliminated what I did. But procedurally, I mean, I made a motion to compel them to pay the $5,800. I'm willing to withdraw that motion if Mr. Twing is comfortable with working with the petitioner to come, you know, if it's a hybrid where they pay half and plan half, what have you. Is that something you're?
Well, absolutely. If they want to come into compliance with the tree ordinance, we'd be happy to do that, so.
All right, so let me withdraw my motion in its entirety.
I agree.
And I will resubmit a motion leaving, again, approving the 10 contingencies, but modifying contingency number 4, allowing the petitioner to work with staff to come up with potentially a hybrid of anywhere between 29 full inches of trees or up to $5,800 or some happy median therein.
All right, and is there a second for that? Yes, Mr. Ellison. Okay, and I'm just going to say, my understanding is that contingency number 4, either one of these things, what they do or something in between, is going to comply with the tree ordinance. So we're going to get a compliant plan no matter what. So I would certainly support the motion.
No, I understand that. I mean, it would be my preference just from a procedural. If I had read, we are planting 29 inches worth of trees and we're getting more green, and we're getting more, greenery, that would have been my preference, just to see that in writing, not even have this discussion.
All right, very good. Is there any more discussion on the motion? Okay, seeing none, I'm going to call for the vote. The motion is to approve the site plan with the 10 contingencies with the additional comment number 4 that the petitioner is afforded the opportunity to work with staff and come up with a hybrid if they like, or meet this contingency number 4. Second by, I believe, Mr. Ellison. And I'm going to call for the voice vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, seeing none, site plan is approved. Congratulations. Okay. Now, next is next order of business, SP 240708, site plan at 215 South Washington, is the old P. King House site. Mr. Twing, tell us about this one.
Well, this site is zoned in the Central Business District. As that, the petitioner, and based on their proposed use, are not required to provide parking. Based on what the plan is in front of you, the basement area of about 3,900 square feet is planned to be office. The first floor and the second floor are both 6,200 square feet. The first floor is indicated and planned for retail. The second floor, existing second floor at 6,200 is planned to be office. And they are proposing to build a third floor of an additional 6,200 square feet for a total of roughly 22,500. And that last floor is also indicated it be an office. The first contingency and related to that, if you look at the survey of the plan, if I can find it here real quick. There are a couple of areas of the building that currently encroach into the city property, adjacent city parcels. For some reason I'm not finding it, but there's a property line where the facade projects a few inches into the right-of-way of Washington and into the property on the north side in the back northeast corner, and I believe a little bit on the south where the building touches again the property line of the city lot. That's an existing condition. We're simply indicating that the appropriate agreements for that encroachment be put in place and dealt with. And in addition to that, any construction and staging that may need the right-of-way on municipal property get the appropriate approvals from the city. Given that it could involve private property versus right-of-way, it's not going to be handled necessarily under a right-of-way permit. So contingency one is trying to cover the fact that there is city-owned but considered private property adjacent to this building. They did submit a site logistics plan that had items that needed to be corrected, so our note there is simply indicating that what was submitted is not approved, and it'll be dealt with under those agreements or the right-of-way permit that engineering would do for encroachments in the Washington right-of-way. Second is they are proposing a patio or hard surface area on the south hatched area of the plan that's in front of you. Use of that area, if it's for outdoor displays or if it's for outdoor dining on a future tenant of the retail floor, would require further review of the Planning Commission and potentially a special land use permit depending on what changes might occur on that first floor. At this point, given it's simply a concrete patio, we simply wanted to make that part of the record. Item 3 is in regards to windows and door openings on the north, south, and east exteriors of the elevation. Again, they're on the property line. There are building code requirements that impact their ability to exit or have openings on those areas. The notation and indication is that their glazing, if you look at the elevation, would be fire rated. The building department will make a final determination on, this is a depiction of the north where there's glass on the property line. The opening on the east elevation is simply the stair and door well coming out the back on that side. And then there's a portion of the south elevation, this portion that touches the property line, and whether those fire rated glazings are approved by the building department. We simply again want to get on record that those are building code issues, but could impact the design. The rest of them are really standard contingencies regarding any paving or lighting in compliance with the sign ordinance.
All right. Are there questions for Mr. Twing? All right, seeing none, I'm going to ask if the petitioner is here. Come up, introduce yourself, tell us why you're entitled to the relief you're seeking, and tell us about your project.
Hello, everyone, this evening. I'm Darren Atesian, and I'm with the petitioner, 215 South Washington. We have been working on this project for a few years now. The former occupant Peking House, there was a kitchen fire back in June of 2020. After about a year of trying to recondition the building, it became apparent that that was not possible, and we went on to the next step of trying to find a new tenant. The building at over 12,000 square feet, that was difficult to do, so we made a pivot and wanted to make this more of a multiple use with the office and the retail component. Building is very well built, so it lent itself for adding the additional floor. and we feel that the market can support this type of office product.
All right, are there questions for the petitioner? Mr. Ellison?
Have you got a tenant lined up, or is this all speculative?
All speculative.
Okay.
Okay, I have a question. I don't see Mr. Krieger here, but do you have, who's gonna design any signs that go on this building? Is that your architect
Krieger
or?
Clatwood, yes. Yeah, Jason was going to be here, but he was en route back to the area from Holiday, so he was not able to make it.
Okay, but because I think that the site plan, like I said, requires a sign plan, and I didn't see one, and that's something that I would want to get proper attention.
Without knowing, I agree, I guess on our end, without knowing what the tenant makeup would be, if they would even want signage, we left that off, but I'm happy to supply that as well. I would assume just signage right on the building would be appropriate, but
Okay.
it would conform to whatever code is through the city.
I would just like your architect to be involved.
Agreed.
That would be my suggestion.
Agreed.
Okay. Other questions for the petitioner? Mr. Gantino?
Actually, a question.
Yes.
My question is actually for Tim. You may not know the answer to it. It's around the encroachment of the building into the public right-of-way and the fact that no agreements currently exist. I understand it's an existing condition, but do we have any history or frame of reference as to how that condition currently exists? Was the original building simply just built in the wrong place?
Well, I don't have any particular record without maybe going back into the building department's microschist files and trying to track down when it got built or how it got built. But what I would point out in the downtown area is there are multiple buildings that have basements under the sidewalk that stick out 3 or 4 feet that we deal with on a constant basis, either by entering into agreements later. Frankly, we had a couple where the new light poles crushed through their basement and had to deal with that. So it's an ongoing thing in the downtown area when you're building lot line to lot line.
So it's a common occurrence, and I guess is my question, in the sense that it's a condition, while it's an existing condition, they typically don't get discovered until processes like this where you have a building owner that's doing something to the building.
Yeah, we found it. We want to make sure it's on record that all the owners are aware of it. And
Thank you.
All right. I guess I have another quick question here. So do I understand then that some of the doors will actually swing out into the right-of-way? Is that the issue here? One of the issues?
No, none of the doors will swing into the right-of-way. They're all recessed in some fashion, or will need to be recessed so they don't come over the property line. The exits on some of them are going out onto city property that's not the right-of-way, particularly the one on the east elevation that comes out of the stairwell. That's a building code issue. It's not a zoning issue, so we've simply pointed that out.
All right. All right. Other questions for Mr. Twing, the petitioner? Further discussion? Let's do this. We did this for the other site plan. Is there anybody in the audience who'd like to step up and speak on the proposed site plan for the old Peking house? All right, seeing none, no public comment, come on back. All right. Well, I'll just say, this project is sitting in exactly the same spot, except for higher than the other one was, and certainly looks like an improvement to me. So if somebody makes a motion, I'm probably going to be supporting it. Commissioner Douglas.
Yeah, I'll move approval of the site plan with the contingencies as submitted.
Is there a second? Mr. Gantino, second. So there's a motion by Commissioner Douglas to approve the site plan with the recommended contingencies, second by Mr. Gantino. Is there further discussion?
Yeah, I just want to say that while Peking House was beloved for many years, times change, and we are seeing that despite problems in the office market elsewhere in the region, if they're building here and they've got the financing, it means that lenders and owners believe in Royal Oak as a office location. And it is ideal, because employees can go shopping at lunch or their lunchtime or after work, they can dine there. And I think the design is attractive, and I think it's going to be an asset to our downtown.
All right.
Yeah, I just want to underscore what Commissioner Douglas said. Appreciate your investment in our downtown and the bullishness about our community. I know there's always lots of opinions, but the people that have a lot of skin in the game, the banks, the real estate investors, the tenants, their opinion matters most in terms of the future health of our community, in terms of what it's going to look like. And I believe that your investment here is indicative of what we see here up at this table at Royal Oak as a thriving community, and grateful that you're looking at this adaptive reuse. We're keeping the building, we're building on top, we're reinventing where the market's going, and not sitting idle. So appreciate your efforts here.
Thank you for stating that, and we feel very strongly about the future of Royal Oak, and we're happy to invest here, happy to be fortunate enough to invest here.
All right, Mr. Gardina.
So the mayor mentioned a term actually that I appreciate, which is adaptive reuse. Again, my comments are around sustainability. Adaptive reuse is one of the most sustainable things that you can do. But I would encourage you, as the building designs continues to develop, that you take a really strong, hard look at how you can incorporate more sustainability into the building through either renewables or energy efficiency in general, water management, those types of things. It's a great project that you have the ability to incorporate a lot of those elements into a building like this and help the city meet its sustainability goals. So thank you for your investment.
Thank you for stating that, and we do agree, and we're really going to try to value engineer this to have that component to make this as efficient as possible.
Mr. Ellison.
Just a quick comment. I finally have an answer now to the question of what's going on with Peking House. Thank you.
That phone rang for a year straight. They kept it on just in case, and it never stopped ringing. So you never know. Maybe they'll find another home.
All right. Anything else? I think there's a motion on the table by Commissioner Douglas, seconded by Mr. Grantina to approve the site plan. Anything else? All right, I'm going to call for the vote. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. Congratulations. Look forward to it.
Appreciate it.
Okay, next order of business is schedule for special meetings to review the master plan. Mr. Twing.
Well, I will refer this to Mr. Murphy. He's been coordinating the master plan process. What I will point out is the dates that were provided was for potential in-person meetings I received from Matthew from DPZ. Those indicates the dates he told me he was available. I listed simply what were potential conflicts in the second column. But other than that, I'll turn it over to Joseph to tell you where we're at and where we're heading.
Well, recently you received a full copy of the draft master plan. That hasn't been released to the public yet. Unless you have objection, we plan on updating the designated website and posting it to the designated website tomorrow. That designated website is planroyaloak.com. So this would be the appropriate time to set some special meetings for you to review the draft master plan with DPZ. And as Tim pointed out, Matt has highlighted the dates that he's available to come to town upon your request. Once you hold those special meetings and suggest revisions to the document, once you review those revisions, if you accept it as the proposed master plan, it then proceeds forward to the next step, which under the state statute requires the city commission to review and comment on it prior to them authorizing us to release it. And that under the state act, we have to release the draft to adjacent communities, the county, the railroad, public utilities, etc. And they have a 63-day window in which they have an opportunity to make comment. And after that comment period, you can hold at least the one required public hearing on the draft per the state act. if you want to hold more than that or hold meetings in a different format, but you're required under the state act to hold at least one public hearing on the draft master plan. And obviously that's at a later point, but it's to give you an understanding of where you're at in the process and how long we have to go in order to get to a final adopted master plan. So tonight, I think it's appropriate for you to set the dates for the special meetings, and we'll work with DPZ to have them come to town and set the venue. We'll also, again, update the website, distribute notice of the availability of the draft master plan. I think we were really successful last time in our efforts when we did signage throughout the parks and at different city facilities. We would also post notice on social media and in print media as well. So if you'd like to discuss the dates that are noted in the memorandum, I think that'll kind of get the ball rolling, and we'll see who's available at what times and in what facilities.
Oh, all right, go ahead.
Yeah, I heard you say, so there's the 63-day comment period by neighbors and public utilities. So we have to wait till after that in order to do the public engagement?
In order to hold the required public hearing. You can set the required public hearing out in advance of that, yes.
You can't hold
Correct.
it sooner than 63 days.
Correct.
Okay.
And that's once the city commission authorizes the release. And then once you hold that required public hearing, you may or may not want to modify the document afterward. And then if you do, you should review it and approve it and then send it to the city commission for their final acceptance as well.
Thank you.
Okay. I have a couple questions just about the nomenclature used, because I may be confused after reading the report here. So you use the term draft master plan, but right now we're going to get the draft master plan that's going to be provided to the public, and then we can have as many meetings to talk about the draft master plan as we want, but then we would recommend it to the city commission, and if the city commission says we like it, then it becomes a proposed master plan.
Correct.
And is that when the 63-day period starts?
Correct.
Okay, so I just wanted to be clear on that. There's two different things: draft master plan, proposed master plan.
You may have various drafts.
Yeah, the draft can get changed.
And then once you adopt a motion accepting a version as proposed, and you send it to the city commission and they also adopt it, then at that point you shouldn't discuss it any further and make modifications. It's out there for the entities as well as the public to review and bring their comments to us after that 63-day period and at that required public hearing.
And then we're going to have a statutory public hearing that we'll have to vote on whether or not we want to recommend the final master plan.
Correct.
Which was the proposed master plan.
Correct.
And we send it saying we want this to be the final. Okay.
You got it.
Draft, proposed, final. Okay. All right. Mr. Cantina.
So tonight's discussion is around dates for the special meeting or special meetings, if there's multiple. My question is, are those closed meetings or are those still open meetings?
No, those would be regular public meetings with public comment, so that you can deliberate and you can adopt motions as you choose. If you have a study session, you can't adopt a motion to direct the consultant to do this, that, or the other.
Okay.
So we want you to have the opportunity to do that. So it's appropriate to hold it as a special meeting, not a study session.
I think it's important that you have the opportunity to vote, and that's why it would be a special meeting versus a work session, and it would be separate from your normal planning commission meetings, because you may have disagreements on a draft plan and revisions, and you may have to vote on giving the consultant direction. So I think it's important you have that ability to give a direction as a body to the consultant.
That was my understanding of it as well. I just want to make sure I got clarification on it, because I know there's definitely concerns in the community around their ability to, I guess, be aware of the conversations that are happening, opportunities for input. So I just want to make sure we clarified what that special meeting actually entailed. It's like any other regular meeting, public hearing, public comment, that sort of thing. So
There wouldn't be a public hearing, but there would be public comment.
Public comment, excuse me. I misspoke. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor.
So the way I see it is we had some initial public engagement that this body used to kind of help give some direction to the consultants to say, hey, take the heavy lifting with our planning department to get the things that you heard and make a proposal. That's what we're going to look at here in one of these meetings. Say, okay, well, we have a first draft. It's not the final draft. It's a draft, a piece of clay that we can actually start to shape. And then it'll be an iterative process of meetings and drafts and public comment between now and whenever, because it could take for a long time. It could take a longer time. That we get all of that input and we make motions at these meetings to say, hey, you know what, you got it wrong here. We need you to change this or do whatever. And then at some point in time, with that iterative public input on this working draft, this body will then vote on a proposal to the city commission. And when the city commission looks at that, the city commission, could they kick it back down? Could they say, hey, the planning commission missed a couple things, or, you know, hey, we see things a little differently. Can you reconsider these things, whatever it may be? But then again, let's say it comes back, then we have this document that is ready for the city commission. The city commission says, yep, this is the one that we think, after all of the public input from the very beginning of this through this next phase of public input that we have and planning commission input, we're going to put it out there and say it's frozen for a minimum of 63 days. To say it's frozen so people, so you know, it's not like, hey, it's here and then you have a week to look at this master plan and make, you know what I mean? And then if we get any additional input 63 days later at that public hearing or whatever, we can still go back and revise it and start it over again. Okay, so
Absolutely.
there's nothing, I mean, we're far from having anything in stone at this point.
Most
Very,
certainly.
very far. We have a basic framework document that has stuff in it that we have to go to work on.
Yes.
Okay, thank you
And
for.
that's the point of the special meetings, is to have the consultant provide an overview and for you to really get into all the fine details of it and make sure it includes things that you do not want. All the comments that we receive from, I'll say the entities as they're referred to under the state act, the county, adjacent communities, what have you, as well as the public, you will consider all of those in any modification that you might wish to make.
Perfect.
I just have another question, clarification. There's a value to making it a special meeting where we can vote, but if we wanted to make a study session, one of these a study session, that's still a public meeting. It's just that we're not going to vote. So we could have both special meetings and study sessions all we wanted.
Sure. I know that in the past, several planning commission members have asked DPZ, since some of their recommendations evolve around the term form-based codes, as to, can you provide us a little study session on what that means? Give us clearer understanding. Perhaps that might be more appropriate, where the consultant is merely providing you with a clearer understanding of a topic. You may have dialogue with them, but it's not specific language or items within the draft master plan that you're telling them to change or make a different direction on. They're just expressing their expertise on a particular topic that you asked them to. So that may be a good example for a study session versus a special meeting.
All right, thank you. All right, so I think we understand that, and we should discuss what the cadence is. I'm going to pop up right away and say, well, tomorrow is Wednesday. If the draft is published, 4 weeks from then is Wednesday, August 7th, and I would myself suggest that we are aggressive early on, and I would suggest that we consider both Wednesday, August 7th and Wednesday, August 21st for meetings, and try to get out of the gate and spend some time on this after having a month to review it. That's just my opinion.
Yeah, but my only thought is, and Joseph, please clarify for me, these blocks of dates are the dates that Matt can be in town.
Correct.
So, I mean, if we're going to have 3 meetings, we want to have 3 meetings while he's here, I would assume. So to do the 7th and the 21st, I mean, is he going to go back and forth, or is he looking for one set? Oh, I'm sorry. Is Matt willing to go back and forth, or is he looking for one set of 3 dates consecutively?
He didn't express any definitive answer to that. Obviously, I think there's value, as you said, with having successive meetings or meetings very close to each other where he can stay in town. You could even take advantage of, if you wanted to do a meeting with him on a Monday and a Wednesday, you could meet with him individually on a Tuesday. Certainly can't be a majority of you that meet with him, but you could meet with him at City Hall on Tuesday at different times, different overlapping times, and provide him with your comments in a more personalized manner.
Okay.
Obviously, it wouldn't be something that you would be giving him direction as a collective body, but it does allow you that one-on-one opportunity.
Okay, that's an interesting comment. I actually was thinking it would, myself, there would be value in separating the meetings, but there's also value in bunching them up. Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, and I think that depends after we get through the first round, right? If we need him to come back. If it's so not, if we have a lot of criticisms or a lot of extra work, he's going to have to come back. If it's 99% there, which I'm doubtful, I mean, that would just be a near impossibility, then on that extreme, maybe you can think of a different cadence. But I would say, I mean, if you want to go 1 month from now, I think the 5th, 6th, and 7th, the 6th is Election Day. And so I think that's a problem. But maybe if we met on the 5th somewhere, then it gives him Election Day, if he's working here during Election Day, to make changes, modifications, do whatever, and then we reconvened on the 7th. That's a possibility. Things like that I'm open to. Wednesdays in general are going to be a little harder for me, Wednesday evenings, but we can go with the majority. And then I think inevitably he'll have to come back out. I mean, it's going to be, I mean, you could say, hey, we're going to need you in the 5th and 7th, and we're going to need you out here on the 19th, 20th, 21st, and 22nd. And actually that book of dates there gives him enough time in between to do some work and then come back out for a longer streak. But I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I don't know how that iterative process should go.
Yeah, my thought process was actually the exact opposite of what I'm hearing so far. I mean, I was thinking of a couple things. I mean, with about 6 weeks left of summer, those of us who have younger kids, those of us who have daughters who are teachers and so forth, it made more sense to me for one reason. Give the community like 2 full months to really digest this document, because this document is going to be significant. And I think, allowing it to percolate out there a little bit longer. But then once we get past Labor Day and really get back into the normal swing of things, and summer is in our rearview mirror, I was going to say let's pick the 9th through the 11th of September or the 16th through the 18th and knock out 3 meetings. I don't see a value in putting our foot on the gas.
All right. That's why we have multiple commissioners.
Yeah, and I don't disagree with that. I think, though, that the question is if you have a draft that is requiring a lot of changes, do you want to get those changes in, and those can percolate longer? But I think as long as people understand that, it's very much a draft, and that, they take the time to look at it and provide feedback of what they think should be changed, but knowing that, look, it's very much a draft, that Mr. Esby's plan could work in a business setting when you didn't have to coordinate so much. You would maybe meet weekly on it. And we can do a mix of stuff. I don't know what to expect out of this first draft. I mean, I don't know what public comment's going to be in the first 4 weeks or 8 weeks. And so it's hard for me to wrap my head around, after that initial release, what we should be doing until I see the type of feedback we get. That's why I think if we just pick a date for the first round, then from there, I think that's going to trigger the game plan moving forward. And if 8 weeks is better than 4, that's okay. I just want it to be crystal clear to the public, unequivocally, that the statement is like, this is very much, this isn't the city commission's or the planning commission's master plan. This is a draft proposed by a consultant based on input thus far.
All right, Mr. Gantino.
So I'm kind of in between both of those thoughts. I do think that it's good to kind of have the document out there, season for a little bit, but at the same time, I don't want to wait too long before we have an initial round of meetings. I think if we just plan on, a set of 3-day meetings, kind of knock everything out, invariably we're going to have schedule additional meetings after that. because I think there's going to be things that come out of those discussions that we want to give DPZ the opportunity to incorporate into the next iteration of the document. So I'm kind of in between both of those statements in the sense that I do think we should probably schedule at least one set of the meetings earlier on. So if that's 4 weeks from now, do that. But then sort of have in our minds to actually plan a second set of meetings, and maybe that one gets pushed out a little bit longer. Because I do think it is important to make sure that anything that comes out of any initial discussions, the DPZ does have an appropriate amount of time to incorporate those thoughts into the next iteration of the documents that we see and discuss.
Yeah, and in fact, that's sort of what I was thinking. Maybe it's just because the way I work is that, you know, getting him out here and having a session and getting some initial feedback and knowing where we're going and how we feel about it, and then taking a break and then having another session was sort of what I was thinking. I didn't think to doing it all at once. That never occurred to me, quite frankly. So I still think, and I have to say something, I don't know what the contract says. I assume that it's a lump sum in terms of their fee. I don't know if we have to pay for their plane tickets. If we do have to pay for their plane tickets, well, maybe that's a factor. I never considered saving the plane ticket. I only considered the cadence. So just so you know where I'm coming from.
I think a plane ticket's well worth the cost of, you know, getting a good product out of it.
Well, I'm gonna say I still think we should. I would say we should consider having an early session on the 7th, and just get something started with this. 4 weeks is I think enough time. If people don't think it is, then we can go 8 weeks. But I think it's. But we couldn't have this on election day, and so it would just be a 1 day. But if we start the meeting at 5 o'clock. And it goes to who knows how long it goes. It's going to be a lot of work. And you bring DPZ in here and you know, put him through you know, the gauntlet for 3 days. I think he's going to be better off to take a break, go back and sharpen his pencil and make changes. Yes.
Yeah, I'm inclined to. I mean, I think 4 weeks is enough. I'm inclined to look at those dates, and particularly the 7th, having checked to see the availability of this room. I know staff had explored the possibility of holding a session in the police department's conference room, but that means we have to move video equipment over there, whereas this room is set up for this, and I think transparency is important. We need to meet in a place that is, you know, has the maximum opportunity both for recording and for broadcasting and for attendance. So I would support August 7th. I will also say selfishly that I will be away from August 20th through September 4th, and so I like August 19th as a subsequent date for discussion, but that's just me.
Are you thinking of a particular time?
Sorry?
Are you thinking of a particular time for those?
On the 7th?
Yes, you also referenced the 19th.
Oh.
I know you didn't make a motion, but are you thinking of earlier rather than later?
People have, I mean, it's, you know, I can meet any time, but it's really up to people who like have day jobs.
Well, the suggestion here was they could start at 5. Usually our meetings start at 7. I think the idea of starting earlier for this meeting is a good idea. I don't know if 6 or 5 is the right one, but I think it probably should be bumped up.
I will say that with the city commission, when we have a 5 o'clock meeting, we get fed. And maybe if we want to skip that possibility, we split the difference and start at 6.
I wouldn't have a problem with 6. I would also, now that I'm just hearing this and I'm just giving you feedback, I would like to start with something on August 7th. And then if the rest of the summer we don't want to mess with, and we have commissioners with children and with college stuff and vacations, maybe then we go to that September 16th, 17th, and 18th string of dates. I just want to get something started. So August 7th and then September 16th through 18th, or 16 and 17th, that would still make sense to me. Mr. Cantina.
So I'd be in favor of an early August date to kind of get the process started, and I use that term very specifically to use Mr. Esbury's terms. I don't want it to seem like we're putting our foot on the gas just to cram this through. We do need to get the process started because it is a bit of a drawn-out process, and because it seems like we're generally all accepting the fact that there is going to be multiple rounds of discussions around this thing. I think it's important to get that first one in. 4 weeks from now does seem like an adequate amount of time to have the document that'll be released tomorrow seasoned to the point where we can begin that discussion in early August. From there, I agree with you, Chair, the dates in September, mid-September may be a good follow-up. Again, leaving plenty of time between that initial discussion and the follow-up discussions to sort of satisfy both sides. Allow the document to continue to season, allow the consultant enough time to make any changes, but also to not keep our foot on the gas, again, to use Mr. Esby's terms, because I do think transparency and methodical process is important, making sure that we're taking into account all the comments. That sort of cadence to me makes a little bit more sense, where we're getting the process started, but because it's so long, we're allowing the appropriate amount of time to get all of the conversation in.
All right. I just would say this. Some people at this table have been through this process before and some have not. And so that early date is going to help those who have not been through it also, just to hammer on that point. Mr. Ellison.
Since I haven't added anything yet, and I've been through this process before.
I know.
It's a long damn process, and you're right, you can't rush it. So I kind of like the idea of setting up maybe mid-August for our initial review, and then following up with a couple weeks after that in September. But we're still going to be going on this thing well into next year. I mean, this is not going to happen overnight, but we do need to make that first step. And I think allowing us to get to mid-August for that is sufficient. As long as we're going to get the document before that, I'm assuming, right?
Tomorrow. It's going to be public. Tomorrow it's going to be public.
Okay. So we're going to have the document to review until that time, and we should be ready to go by mid-August.
Okay, do you have a date in August that you think is most optimal?
Well, any one of those dates. You talking about the 19th, 20th, 21st, 22nd? I looked at my calendar. I mean, assuming we're going to do these at night, I'm not going to do them during the day.
Yeah, we just talked about starting at 6 o'clock.
Yeah, the 6 o'clock is fine on any of those nights. It is Dream Cruise week, so it'll be crazy, but...
And I wouldn't object to August 19th instead of August 7th, but I still like August. I could check my calendar here. All right, so I was looking at my calendar. I don't know if anybody had their hand up. Okay, so I think the sense is we should pick an August date and then pick a couple dates in September. I think that's what I'm hearing. That's what I myself favor. I don't necessarily need the particular date.
I'm going to move we hold our first session on August 7th at 6 p.m. At City Hall, here in this room.
All right. Is there a second?
I think 1 day is enough.
I'll second that.
Second by the mayor. That's the question by Mr. Gantino was, do we think 1 day is enough? I think that if we start at 6 o'clock, who knows how long it's going to go? It's probably going to be 5 hours of discussion or something like that. Yeah, it probably is enough to get us started, to learn stuff that we didn't know.
Well, and you say, is that enough? I mean, the 5th and 6th are not available in this room. If you move to the 19th, 20th, 21st, again, selfishly, I'm leave town on the 20th. So we might, that's why I like the 7th.
And I don't think it's reasonable August 12th and 13th city commission or regular planning commission meetings. That's just not a good idea.
Yeah, unfortunately, obviously before this agenda came out with these series of dates, I had planned my life around having a plan commission meeting, obviously, the week of the 13th. I'm just a hard no on the 7th. I very simply can't make it. If it ends up I end up missing it, so be it. I get it, because some of us are going to have to miss some of these meetings. I hate the idea of missing the first workshop, but at this point, it's set in stone.
Okay, that's important information.
Yeah, I'm happy to move it to the 19th if everybody is available on the 19th, so I could turn down this or vote no on this motion if everybody's available and willing on the 19th.
I'm myself available and willing on the 19th. The motion was by Commissioner Douglas. I think she is probably going to be packing on that day, but
I pack well in advance.
if you know, we should do our best to make sure that we're not interfering with the plans. If you think you can make it on the 19th, that might be the better day.
You want to withdraw your motion?
You would maybe want to withdraw your motion and switch to the 19th, or you want us to vote on the 7th?
No, I'll withdraw my, who seconded it, the mayor? I'll withdraw my motion and propose the 19th.
Second by the mayor. Okay. Any objection to the 19th? I don't mean, I just mean, you know, casually here. Everybody just
To clarify, still 5 PM in this room.
6 p.m.
Or sorry, 6 PM. 6 PM.
Okay, so the motion on the table is to have the first session with DPC live and in person to discuss the master plan draft Monday, August 19th at 6 p.m. in this room. That's the motion, seconded by Commissioner Douglas, seconded by the mayor. Any further discussion? Okay, I'm going to call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we have set a date for the first master plan special meeting. All right, do we want to grab those September dates in mid-September, 16th and 17th?
Yeah. Yes.
Yes.
Okay, is there a motion?
I will move to schedule the second special meeting for September 16th and 17th, 6 PM in the City Commission chambers.
All right, is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Commissioner Douglas. Is there any further discussion? Okay, I'm going to call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion passes. We have 2 more dates. So we've got 3 dates. I don't know if you want any more right now. I think that's going to get us started. I think this is a good idea. So do we want to do anything further?
Yes. Please read the document thoroughly in advance of the meetings.
Okay, that's a good idea. If you're talking about your, yes. All right, Mr. Mayor, or Mr. Former Mayor.
Will we be getting a copy of the document?
We have it.
When did we get it?
You did. You received an email
I suppose I should check my
2
email.
weeks ago, something of that nature?
Okay, so we've already got it, okay.
Yes. And again, it'll be posted to the designated website tomorrow.
Okay, well, that's what Morris interested in, okay.
All right, very good. What next? I think we're ready to move on, are we? All right, let's move on to the next item on the agenda, which is some, what do we got here? Sorry, I lost my agenda. Informational items, there we go. Other business, non-action items. Mr. Twing?
Those are, as you said, non-action items. It's a report from the Oakland County Road Commission, and then a summary of the administrative site plan approvals from April through June.
All right, very good. Are there questions or comments about these non-action items from the commissioners? All right, seeing none, I don't have anything else on the agenda. If there would be a motion to adjourn, I'm sure it would be highly entertained.
Say entertaining or
Entertained,
Oh,
would be entertained, yes.
I would adjourn.
Okay, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Nay. We are adjourned. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
passed a lot of environmental laws and parks.